Between the likes of Horizon Zero Dawn, Nier Automata and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, players have been swamped with great video games to play in 2017. After taking the summer off to let players recuperate though, the gaming industry is back in full swing, ready for the Christmas season. With amazing, blockbuster titles starting to trickle out in September like Destiny 2, the bulk of the year's biggest names have dropped over October, including some surefire Game of the Year contenders, boasting hugely anticipated sequels like Middle-earth: Shadow of War and Wolfenstein 2, as well as long-awaited Nintendo Switch releases like Super Mario Odyssey. There have been enough great titles released over the past few weeks to tide players over to well into the new year. With so much to play and big names like Battlefront and COD on the horizon, getting through everything all at once can be far too overwhelming. It's essential to distinguish between which games are must-plays and which can wait until an inevitable New Year sale, starting from worst to best with Page 2. After multiple delays, Gran Turismo Sport finally released earlier this month, and for the most part has proved itself as yet another solid entry in the franchise. Lacking any sort of standout feature though, even the addition of VRHASNT marked the sequel out as a must-play game for anyone other than ride-or-die racing fans. The core experience itself is strong, with the sense of speed and the feel of the cars doing more than enough to satisfy players who enjoy the racing sims, but without any real story mode or substantial single-player options to speak of. The sequel is more for those looking to jump in and out of competitive multiplayer matches. A technical marvel, Sport is one of the best-looking games of the generation so far. It's just a shame that underneath the looks there isn't that much substance to the overall racing experience. Page 3. Despite taking the franchise off the annualized release schedule and giving their developers an extra year of production time to craft a brand new sequel, Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed Origins still ended up being, well, more Assassin's Creed. Releasing full of bugs and glitches even though the devs had an extra year to make sure the game wasn't another Unity, the sequel is a defined improvement over some of the more recent entries, but still isn't quite as revolutionary as many fans were expecting. The ancient Egyptian setting itself is superbly brought to life, it's just that there aren't enough innovative or markedly new things to do in Ubisoft's beautifully rendered sandbox to make Origins a must-play title. There's a good game in there somewhere, it's just buried under so much superfluous content that you only catch fleeting glimmers of the sequel Origins could have been. Page 4. Continuing a string of successes, the latest main entry in the Forza series was yet again a strong racing game that proved Microsoft's franchise is the new king of the genre. Overtaking Gran Turismo when it comes to polish and sheer racing thrills, the latest sequel once again enjoyed a number of positive critical reviews at launch. While the core of the sequel was as strong as ever, sadly the game suffered a huge backlash from fans because of Microsoft's decision to gate the majority of content behind a paywall, utilizing the increasingly annoying random loot drop framework to reward cars and parts that were previously accessed by, well, playing the game. Rather than a full experience, fans were miffed that the sequel they received was essentially a piecemeal version of Forza, carved up and sold to players in little bits. It's not what fans were expecting, and that gut reaction has soured an otherwise excellent title. Page 5. Releasing in a sea of controversy surrounding loot boxes and microtransactions, Shadow of War's biggest problems had nothing to do with WB's questionable business practices, but rather the quality of the sequel's writing and design. With a NAF campaign that played fast and loose with Lord of the Rings lore, the sequel unfortunately didn't learn from the mistakes of its predecessor when it came to crafting a central campaign that players would enjoy. Still, despite its shortcomings, the title fortunately had the new and improved Nemesis system at its core. Creating your own stories across the battlefields of Middle-earth is what kept the game interesting long after the slog through the main campaign had ended, and why there are so many unique experiences that players have shared from the title floating around online. It really is a special system, and Shadow of War has managed to take it to the next level, allowing fans to create rivalries with enemies that they'll remember long after the sequel's WTF campaign has been forgotten about. Page 6. After suffering a few delays, the sequel to the surprise smash hit South Park game The Stick of Truth finally released earlier this month, thankfully being worth the wait. Following on from the immediately addictive RPG gameplay of the original, the Fractured But Whole retains the core essence of South Park while still making for an enjoyable game to actually play. Likewise, despite being in development for years, the references and social commentary are as relevant as ever. With the Takina Prisoners approach to satire, the TV show is known for thankfully making its way over to the sequel. There were still a few problems that dragged the game down a bit, not least a questionable intro that doesn't set the full story up on its strongest foot, but despite lacking the same novelty and originality the Stick of Truth became known for, TFBW is still a great sequel regardless, and easily one of the funniest games of the year. Page 7. A huge step up from its predecessor, The Evil Within 2 is everything the survival horror genre should be today. Sticking to the essence of what made the giants of the genre so successful, Tango Gameworks' sequel managed to blend old-school game design with a more contemporary approach, including a handful of perfectly executed open-world hubs for players to navigate over the course of the main campaign. Mixing this sandbox gameplay with linear levels that are closer to what you'd expect from a game like Resident Evil 4, the title might frustrate fans who are looking for a shooter that sticks to one of these styles and runs with it, but for the most part The Evil Within 2 manages to make this uneasy balance work. Full of imaginative set pieces and some of the most skin-crawling monster designs in recent memory, the confident sequel to an already underappreciated survival horror game is a must-play for even passing fans of the genre. Page 8. Somehow managing to make shooting Nazis a political controversy, Wolfenstein has been the subject of some rather strange online debate in the run-up to its release. Putting all of that aside though, on its own merits the game is by far one of the best shooters of the year. Improving on the original and capitalizing on the renewed confidence of its old-school approach thanks to the warm reception Doom enjoyed last year, the latest Wolfenstein has only doubled down on the balls-to-the-wall action that made the original 2014 reboot such a joy to play. With an even more biting story than ever that kicks this alt-future universe up to 11, the dark humor at the heart of the franchise is back with a vengeance in this sequel, boasting even more imaginative set pieces and characters than ever before. With so much buzz surrounding the death of single-player at the moment, Wolfenstein: The New Colossus proves just what the industry would be missing if it stopped supporting dedicated solo experiences and adopted an even bigger focus on shared world releases. Page 9. It's a cliché to say that playing Nintendo games have the ability to transport you back to feeling like a little kid, returning to a time when video games were pure escapism where every last one of your real-world problems disappear, but it's so true. The latest Mario pulsates with this exact feeling, and like Breath of the Wild earlier this year, pushes the franchise in a modern direction in ways that keep it feeling contemporary without giving in to greedy business practices or illusion-breaking game design. Again, like Zelda, Odyssey has taken Mario 64's more expansive level designs and moved fully into open-world quest structures, featuring various explorable hub worlds making up the game's core progression. It's a somewhat small difference, but the shift in direction gives each kingdom a ton of things to see, do and uncover, proving that Mario is still as relevant and lovable as ever. Super Mario Odyssey isn't just a great game, it's the exact game we need right now, and one of the best releases of the year.